Hello everyone, and welcome to this, the March 2nd, 2016 edition of Balls Deep Sports Talk, episode number 55. I am your host with the almost, your once again hump day hero, as I am recording this on a Wednesday, our native day of the week here on the show. Scotty Ball, thank you for tuning in this week, whether you're on SoundCloud, YouTube. Well, let's face it, you're not on YouTube. No one listens to the show on YouTube, so you could be, like, that could be your thing. You could be the person that's doing that. I'm just throwing it out there. Or if you're listening on my personal favorite way to enjoy the show, yes, I am that narcissistic that I listen to my own show after I have recorded it. But anyway, my favorite way to do that is on the completely free Spreaker app. Just go to your iStore or your App Store, or as Arnold Schwarzenegger says in that awesome new commercial for Mobile Strike, I think the game is called, he goes, "Get it in the App Store." You'd swear he was saying Up Store, not App Store. It's fantastic. But yeah, get it in the iStore or your App Store on the Spreaker app. So yes, however you found the show this week, thank you for tuning in. As I mentioned, it is our 55th consecutive weekly episode of the show here. But if for some reason one day a week isn't enough sports from Scotty Ball for you, well, a great way to make that however often you want would be to connect with me on social media. I am both on Twitter and Facebook. Let's face it, who's not on Facebook these days, at least in the United States? But if you would like to see repostings and retweetings that I do on a daily basis of all the sports news and more that we talk about here on the show every week, you should search me on Facebook simply by searching Scotty-Ball, and then you friend and like me. It's that easy. And also, if you're on Twitter, which I personally prefer, but I know most everyone's on Facebook, if you're on Twitter, you should follow the show at BDST Show. Like I said, I repost a lot of sports news on both formats, as well as some occasional live postings and tweetings as well. But I think that's all we got for shameless promotions so far. Rest assured, there will be at least one or two more before the show's done. But let's get to what we've all got for topics here on tonight's show. As I mentioned on the last couple shows, if you've been listening, we're going to try and keep the shows here at least for a little while between the 1 to 2 hour mark. No more than 2 hours is what we're going for here now. Football season, we were hitting a solid 3 hours almost every week, and with my schedule now, it's just, that's gotten to be too much, where I can do an hour, I can do 90 minutes, 2 hours is about my limit. That's where I gotta start just cutting myself off, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, like I said, let's get to the overview of what's going to be talked about on tonight's show. A lot of different topics to discuss. Whatever your sports flavor is, we're probably going to have it here, you know, at least for a little bit on tonight's show, with, you know, a few exceptions, like, I mean, professional bowling, things like that probably aren't going to make the show. Cricket, you know, things of that nature as well. But anyway, we will be discussing, finally, in a little bit of depth, some baseball, because the Major League Baseball preseason, or spring training as they call it, is officially underway. The first spring training game of my and possibly your Minnesota Twins was held today, and they were victorious over the Boston Red Sox 7-4. Phil Hughes, I want to say, was the starting pitcher for that game. Now, a lot of the regular, you're not really going to see too much at all, at least for a while, of the, you know, regular expected everyday 9 lineup together playing on the same days here in spring training. You're going to get a lot of mixing and matching, where you'll have 2 or 3 kind of teams with your primary starters and everyday position players staggered out over those 2 or 3 lineups so that players can rest, because now that it's started, there's only one day for the rest of March, and I believe that is Tuesday, March 15th, something like that, whatever the middle Tuesday in March is. That is their only day where there isn't a spring training game for the Minnesota Twins club or organization, at least one. There's probably going to be days where there are multiple ones as well, although I can't confirm that right now. I don't have I have not obtained a Twins schedule yet from my area gas station, as I usually do at the beginning of every Twins season. I get the old school little booklets that you can keep in your wallet or your pocket or whatever, and you fold them out and stuff. I don't know. I'm old school like that in a bunch of other ways too. But so we will definitely be talking some baseball, particularly Twins baseball. Like I said, diving into their lineup in depth. Balls depth. Sometime here in the show, as well as maybe a little bit of other Major League Baseball talk as well. Again, we'll try to work in a conversation about Yoenis Cespedes, mainly just so that I can say his name several times in the show, because it's mine and several other sportscaster people, favorite name in sports right now, and for obvious, lowbrow hilarity reasons. But so we'll see if we can't work some Yoenis Cespedes into our baseball talk as well. We've got plenty of hockey talk to discuss. The Wild are still winning games. They have lost a few here now in the Torchetti era, but they have won a few as well since losing their first game in the Torchetti era that we talked about on last week's show. And since we talked on last week's show, not only have they won their first home game in their home arena, mind you, the outdoor game against the Blackhawks is an exception there. In their home arena, they had not won a home game since December 28th. They have now, in fact, won a home game since the last time we talked, and I want to say they made it 2 home games in a row since the last time we talked. And there was also a trade. I cannot believe the Wild were successful in actually making a trade. So we will definitely be talking about that as well, where they sit in the standings now, coming off of their big win last night over the Colorado Avalanche. I want to say that was 6-3, and that game put us in a tie with them for the 8th seed, and that we do have, I want to say, 2 games in hand on them as well. So a big win last night for the Wild. Definitely be talking some Wild hockey. We'll also take a quick look at the standings as well, at least most likely, and we will also discuss just a little bit of World Cup hockey news, as the World Cup hockey tournament, which is pretty dang sure not held every year. It's like an Olympic, every 2 or every 4 or something like that type of thing. I'm not sure. Maybe it is held every year, and I just don't pay attention until now. That is very, very possible. And please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see how it's the type of thing they could do every year with people's, pro schedules. Highly unlikely. But it is going to happen this year. It's going to be coming up way up in September before the NHL season starts. It starts on September 17th, and the rosters for all the teams were announced. I'm not going to tell you every name on every roster of every team in the tournament, but we will discuss just a little bit of some of the players that we might be familiar with and interested in who are in the tournament, as well as just, the general format of the tournament as well, since, I'm assuming that a casual hockey fan, maybe has little understanding of it as I do. I mean, it's kind of like a casual golf fan. You don't expect them to know about the Ryder Cup, but you expect them to know a little bit about the Masters and the U.S. Open, or maybe that's just what I'm saying to make myself feel better. As most cases in life, it's usually a little bit of both, column A and column B. But so we got plenty of hockey to discuss for all of my listeners here in the state of hockey, that being Minnesota, where I live, born and raised all my life. And I know that I have at least a few regular weekly listeners here in the land of 10,000 plus lakes, and odds are, like I said, here in the state of hockey, odds are they're hockey fans. So we'll be talking some hockey tonight, or at least I'll be trying to talk some hockey. Although so far, we might have to check back in on my predictions, my preseason predictions before the end of the regular season in hockey, because I'm doing pretty good. Like, my top two picks were the Ducks and the Capitals. And while the Ducks didn't start out very good, they're clearly looking like, they're for sure in the playoffs, either going to win their division or be second in their division. I think they're going to win their division yet, so they're going to have as favorable of matchups as they can hope for, with the exception of having to run into the Blackhawks or the Stars. I don't know why I would say the Dallas Stars with a Boston accent. I'm not sure. But anyway, more hockey talk coming on up later in the show. Easy for me to say. We'll also be talking NBA basketball. There is Wolves news as well, both with winning and losing, as well as player movement. The T-Wolves were actually able or willing, I guess you should say, would be another way to say it, to cut ties and dump 2 players on their team this week. Both of which, if you're T-Wolves fans, you're at least familiar with from this season or last season as well. That being Andre Miller, backup point guard, veteran point guard, and shooting guard Kevin Martin, who averaged 20 points a game for the Timberwolves at shooting guard last year. He was bought out of his contract, had a little over $7 million, I want to say, remaining on his contract for next year, and the T-Wolves just straight up bought him out. I want to say Andre Miller was cut. So we'll discuss that for T-Wolves news, as well as look around the league, check in on teams like Golden State, San Antonio, Oklahoma City, Cleveland Cavaliers, stuff like that. We'll also definitely, without a question, be talking some NCAA college basketball. And not only because it is now officially March and we need to start getting prepared to fill out our brackets for the March Madness NCAA tournament, but because not really my because I live in Minnesota, my not because I'm an actual fan or care about them, but possibly your Minnesota Gophers find themselves, their men's basketball team finds themselves in the news, and it is just for fantastic reasons. I could not be, it's just, it's gold, it's sports talk radio gold, as they say here in the biz, and let's just say it involves the suspension of 3 players on the men's basketball team here for the remaining, I want to say, 2 games of the season, maybe 1, maybe 3, somewhere in there. That's all they got left on their season. But 3 players were suspended for the remainder of the season off of the Gophers team, and it is because they were involved in the recording of or presentation and distribution of an adult content themed film involving, I believe, if what I've heard has been correct, involving on screen, on film, 2 young men who are both on the Gophers basketball team. I want to say at least one of them for sure is, and then another man who's somehow involved. I don't know if he was the camera guy or something, and then a wonderful young lady, and that was posted on Instagram, I don't know, something like that, under one of the players' profiles and accounts. It wasn't just like, oh, we went digging or saw this, it leaked, whatever. It's like it popped up on one of the players' accounts and profiles for social media. So you can bet your ass